Hello and welcome back to our program. Now we're going to talk briefly about the manager as coach. I want to talk to you about the challenges that we have because we are a manager. It's not always a really easy transition to go into a coaching mode. And you're going to learn a lot in this program about how to be a coach and how to be an effective coach. But the challenge that we have is that we have to let go of some of the things that we do or the way we do things as a manager. So there's a paradox between coaching and managing, and it's just an awareness that we have to have, understanding that it's there, and we really have to work on a regular basis to overcome this paradox. So the manager actually holds the power to promote and to fire, to provide pay increases or demotions. And so in essence, we really have the carrot and the stick. And we talk a lot about this in other programs about how it's important as leaders that we're not managing with a carrot and a stick. That's a very old way of managing. We know it's not effective ultimately with today's workforce. So the paradox here is that your position allows you to basically promote and to fire and to provide pay increases to really change or to make better this person's position. So the challenge with that is coaching, on the other hand, really relies on trust and a positive relationship. It's much easier to be a coach if you don't have positional authority over somebody because that's not something that they're thinking about in their interactions with you. So it really creates a challenge or a paradox as a manager of a team on how can I be an effective coach? And again, we're going to talk about how to be a coach, but this is something that you're going to have to let go of certain aspects of managing people, change your approach on how you do things. So one of the other areas besides this paradox is also the idea that we're in control. Telling or dictating is obviously much faster, and it gives us the feeling of being in control. So we like to be in control. We like to think that as a manager that we control the behavior and the actions, and some of us even think that we control the thoughts of the team members that we have on our team. And so control is an issue that we definitely have as a manager, but in your presence, they appear to comply. But what happens when you turn your back? So we've talked a lot about in other programs and in our free videos, we've talked about this idea of leadership and the idea that we have to use intrinsic motivators, we have to do one-on-ones, and we have to really create positive relationships so our team members want to do what's right and they want to do what's best for the organization. But we know that if we rely on this telling style of leadership, we know that when you're away, when you turn your back, we know that team members are not going to perform the way you want them to perform. The challenge that we have as a manager is really how do we get team members to perform the way we want them to perform? How do we get them to want to perform well, even when you're not in their presence? We don't learn very well when someone simply tells us what to do. It has a very short-term effect, and I wanted to share this with you to give you an idea about really why it is we want to coach. After 3 weeks, when you tell somebody what to do, the recall is about 70%. But after 3 months, that recall drops all the way down to 10%. So that's a huge issue. That means that as a manager, you have to continually be in their presence and repeat what you're telling them to do. Now, if we add showing them, so we're not only telling them, but we're also showing them, there's a slight increase of 72% over 70%. But again, that drops down to 32% after just 3 months. So we know that that's not an effective way to teach our team members how to function well. But what happens if we add experience? What happens if we get them engaged in the decision process? What happens if we get them hands-on doing things in this process? So we're telling, we're showing, and we allow them to experience. How does that look? Well, it goes to 85% after 3 weeks. But after 3 months, it still is at 65%, and that's a huge difference from 10% to 65%. And what I want you to understand in this section is that when we get our team members engaged in the process, where we're not just telling them what to do, your job becomes much easier because they will retain what you're telling, showing, and allowing them to experience. So you're not having to be in their presence constantly in order for your team to function well. And that's really the essence of what we want as a manager, is we want that team member to be able to perform well even when we're not there. The last thing I want to talk about in this section is the coaching model. In the coaching model, the manager can better understand the thought process and also knows what's going on. And those are very crucial things. What I mean by the thought process, when we coach, and we'll go through this in a few more modules, but when we coach, It allows us to ask questions. The team member has the opportunity to think through those questions and then provide an answer as to a direction or a decision. And so we can understand, how is this person thinking? What is their thought process? So the coaching comes in. Obviously, if they come to the wrong conclusion, one that would not work, we need to continue to ask some questions, but we get them to the end result simply because we understand the thought process and we guide them, or we coach them to a better understanding and a better decision. And through that process, we also obviously know what's going on, and that's important as a manager. The team member takes responsibility, and they were involved in the decision-making process. So they not only take responsibility for the outcome, but they feel that accountability to make it successful. It was their idea. They were involved in the decision process, so they buy into the responsibility for a positive outcome, and that's very important. So that's just a really quick look at the manager as coach, and I just wanted to share that aspect with you so that we can really take a look at how we approach coaching. We have to let go of that paradox, that idea that we have the carrot and the stick, and we have to move to this coaching model where we're starting to ask questions and engage team members in the overall decision-making process.